The Biafra War, also known as the Nigerian Civil War, was a bloody conflict that erupted in Nigeria from 1967 to 1970. Although multiple factors contributed to the war, such as ethnic and political tensions, religion, and colonial legacies, oil played a significant role in escalating the crisis. In the early 20th century, Nigeria, which was a British colony at the time, became the focus of oil exploration due to its abundant reserves. Oil was discovered in the Niger Delta region in the late 1950s, and by the mid-1960s, it had become a crucial part of Nigeria's economy. The exploration and extraction of oil brought significant wealth to the country, but it also exacerbated existing tensions, particularly between the ethnic groups in the oil-rich region and the central government. The Biafran region, which was predominantly inhabited by the Igbo people, was also a significant center for oil production. The discovery of oil in this region increased its economic importance and political influence. However, the situation became more complex as the central government, dominated by the Hausa and Fulani ethnic group, began to distribute oil revenues unevenly, leading to widespread economic disparity and political dissatisfaction among the various ethnic groups. The roots of Nigeria's civil war can be traced to colonial rule, when the British forced three very distinct peoples, each living in their own region, the predominantly Muslim Hausa and Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the southwest, and the Igbo in the southeast, to integrate into a state that encouraged regional and ethnic competition. Interspersed between these three groups were ethnic minorities that lacked political rights. Recognizing the tensions inherent in the system, the British worked with Nigerian leaders to create a federal system that gave each region substantial autonomy over its own affairs. Although the Yoruba and the Igbo called for Nigerian independence early on, the Northerners greatly feared Southern domination in an independent state. To manage this tension, the British appointed the moderate Northerner, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, as the first Prime Minister in 1960. Nigeria achieved independence that same year and in 1963 became the Federal Republic of Nigeria. When Nigeria was a British protectorate, it was divided into the southern and northern regions after amalgamation. By 1960, when Nigeria gained her independence, Nigeria had been divided into three regions: the northern region, the western region, and the eastern region. A fourth national region, the Midwestern region, was created at that time to give resident minorities a larger political voice. None of those changes, however, quelled the problem of regionalism. Citizens living outside their home region faced discrimination and exclusion in the provision of public goods. The system established in 1963 ultimately fostered an intense rivalry among the regions to outdo each other in socio-economic development, maximize their share of the federation's resources, and control federal power. By 1964, the federal structure was failing. Ethnic minorities were revolting. Rival political factions were fighting in the western region. Regional governors were attempting to inflate population numbers in national censuses, and elections were both boycotted and rigged. Disillusioned with political chaos and corruption, a group of primarily Igbo army officers staged a coup in January 15, 1966, assassinating Tafawa Balewa and key members of his government. A military government was installed under General Aburi Accord, who was also an Igbo, thereby ending Nigeria's First Republic. Aburi Accord quickly introduced a new constitution and attempted to create a unitary state. Aburi Accords move threatened northern military officers who staged a counter-coup 6 months later on January 29, 1966, killing Aburi Accords and replacing him with a northerner, Major General Yakubu Gowon. Extreme violence in the north, in which thousands of Igbo civil servants and their families were massacred, preceded and followed the coup. As a result, Lieutenant Colonel Emeka Ojukwu, who had been appointed governor of the eastern region under Aburi Accords, called for all Igbos to return to their homeland. The Igbos' decision to strive for secession gained momentum in mid-May 1967, following Gowon's announcement of plans to reorganize Nigeria's 4 administrative regions into 12 separate states. The former eastern region was divided into 3 states: the East Central, Rivers, and South Eastern. This reorganization effectively stripped the Igbo people of control over Port Harcourt and the significant petroleum resources concentrated in the new Rivers State. Additionally, the new boundaries did not align with the ethnic groupings, leaving the East Central State separated from a substantial number of people and oil reserves previously considered as Igbo territory by the federal government. Based on the oil production numbers in April 1967, over a quarter of Nigeria's total oil production came from areas inhabited by Igbo people. The majority of this production came from the predominantly non-Igbo river states, where Igbo-controlled oil areas made up nearly half of the total production. The new arrangement was expected to considerably reduce Igbo oil revenues, as the distribution plan allocated 50% to the state of origin, reserved 15% for the federal government, and distributed the remaining 35% among the states based on population. Accepting such an arrangement would have deprived Ojukwu's government in the east of 60% of its agricultural revenues and 95% of its petroleum income. This would have left the densely populated Igbo heartland landlocked, undernourished, and relatively impoverished due to the isolation from Calabar, Ogoja, and Port Harcourt. Furthermore, the implementation of this new state structure dashed any remaining hope among the Igbo people that the Gowon government would consider their interests. In an effort to address these issues and avoid further escalation of the crisis, a meeting was convened in Aburi, Ghana in January 1967 at the invitation of the then head of state of Ghana, General Joseph Ankara. The Aburi Accord was intended to be a forum for the Nigerian leaders to discuss and resolve their differences in a neutral setting. At the Aburi Accord, key issues such as the distribution of power, the role of the military in government, and the need for greater autonomy for the regions were discussed. The accord itself outlined a framework for power sharing and devolution of authority that was intended to address the grievances of the regional government, particularly the eastern region. The Aburi Accord was seen as a breakthrough at the time, as it provided a potential path towards resolving the political crisis and restoring stability in Nigeria. However, the implementation of the Aburi Accord proved to be fraught with challenges and disagreements between the federal government and the regional authorities. Despite the promises made at Aburi, the interpretation and implementation of the Accord quickly became a source of tension and mistrust between Ojukwu and Gowon. The failure to reach a consensus on the terms of the Accord ultimately contributed to the decision by Ojukwu to secede from Nigeria and declare the Independent Republic of Biafra.